What is the single most historic, paradigm-shifting regulatory event in the history of digital money?
Wow, that's quite the opener. But yeah, I think I know where you're going with this. For so long, regulation felt like, well, like hitting the brakes, right? A lawsuit here, a
Like
warning there.
slow attrition, exactly. But this event we're talking about, it wasn't brakes. It felt more like hitting the gas pedal, but maybe pointing the car in a very specific direction.
That's a great way to put it. It forced a massive restructuring. It brought clarity, sure, but it also forced this huge split in the market, differentiation on a scale we hadn't seen.
Absolutely. We are talking about the catalyst that almost overnight redrew the map for the entire global stablecoin world. We're talking, of course, about the Genius Act.
The Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoin Act. And it's been, what, exactly 90 days since it kicked in.
90 days. So for you, our listener, think of this deep dive as kind of our quarterly report on this new digital economy landscape, our quarterly report on stable dollars, and really the great split in the whole stablecoin market.
And it's definitely not a boring quarterly report, because this act, like the name kind of hints, it was pretty clever. It created clarity, yes, but maybe more importantly, it forced all this innovation. Crazy innovation in ways the regulators probably didn't even see coming, or maybe didn't want.
Totally unintended consequences in some way.
Right. It was like, okay, here's the green light for institutional money. Here's the filter. Compliant, non-compliant. And here's this specific thing we want you to build. A sterile digital dollar.
Sterile being the key word. Zero yield.
Zero yield. And the irony. That immediately triggered this massive rush, this capital flight towards finding yield elsewhere, synthetics, tokenized stuff. It was wild. The regulators built a dam.
And the market instantly dug two huge channels right around it.
Precisely.
And that, you, the listener, that's the heart of the story we're unpacking today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Satoshi.
And I'm Satoshi.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Seriously, thank you for the amazing feedback and all the engagement we've been getting, especially those of you sharing sources, sharing insights. You know, that's what makes this whole thing possible.
Yeah, it really does. And speaking of community input and how we use these sources, we actually have a quick story, right? About the future, maybe.
Yes. Okay, so we've mentioned we're exploring video. Our marketing folks, they keep pushing us. Use Mosaic.so AI video editor. It'll be fast. So, you know, we push back a little.
Turn the tables.
Exactly. We said, okay, you show us. Use Mosaic.so, take the content from this deep dive we're recording right now, and make a sample.
And they did. They came back with this 7-minute sample video, kind of like a trailer for this whole stablecoin bifurcation story.
So we're putting the link to that sample right in the description for you. But here's the ask. We need your eyes on it. It's rough. It's unfinished. Does it work? Does the AI video kind of capture the vibe, the analysis? Does it pass the smell test?
Yeah, where does it need that human touch, that extra polish? Your feedback is super important here. We're still aiming for that 1,000 subscriber mark to really fund proper video production alongside these audio deep dives. So help us figure out what that looks like.
Please do. Okay, so with that said, let's get into it. This is arguably the biggest thing to happen in digital finance this decade. Let's cue the imaginary drum roll. This is the stablecoin bifurcation. Genius Act fallout.
All right, let's start at the source, the act itself.
Okay, to really get the fallout these past 90 days, we have to understand the spark, the date, July 18th, 2025. That's when the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoin Act, the Genius Act, became law.
And this wasn't just tweaking things. This was building a whole new federal house for stablecoins. The goal, they said, was threefold. Protect people after the blowups of 2022.
Yeah, the Luna crash, all that volatility.
Right. Combat illicit finance, bring it into the light. And strategically, this was about boosting the U.S. dollar globally, exporting a regulated digital version.
Okay, so how did they try to achieve that? What were the actual rules for these new permitted payment stablecoin issuers?
Well, they basically had to become like banks almost. Very strict rules to deal with all the old worries about whether the money was really there.
Let's break down those guardrails. The first one sounds like the big one, the 1.1 reserve mandate.
Huge. Absolutely huge. It says the backing, the collateral, has to be only the highest quality, most liquid stuff. And the law was super specific. Cash and short-term U.S. Treasuries. Think like 90 days or less maturity.
So why just those two? Why so narrow?
It boils down to risk. They wanted to kill counterparty risk, who owes who, and duration risk, what happens if interest rates move. By cutting out things like commercial paper, corporate bonds, all that other debt, they basically got rid of the mystery meat in reserves.
The stuff that made people nervous before.
Exactly. They wanted it so you could get your dollar back instantly, even if everyone was rushing for the exits. Liquidity above all else.
Okay, so that's the reserves. What else?
Second big guardrail, transparency and audits. This is mandatory now. Monthly reports, public, showing exactly what's in the reserves. And not just attested by anyone, it has to be certified by proper registered public accounting firms.
So proof of reserves goes from being like a marketing thing some companies did.
To a legal requirement, institutionalizing trust, essentially.
Makes sense. And the third piece, consumer protection.
Yeah, the priority claim provision, this was missing before. If the issuer goes bust, the stablecoin holders, they get first dibs on those segregated reserve assets. They jump ahead of other creditors.
Okay, that's massive for an institution, right?
Yeah.
If you're a treasurer holding millions, knowing your money is separate and you get paid first, that makes it feel a lot safer. Almost like cash in a bank, but, digital.
Functionally very similar from a risk perspective, yeah. Plus programmable, 2004/7, all the crypto benefits.
So those three things built the safety net. But you said there were two market-shaping provisions, the real catalysts for the split. Let's start with the great carve-out, the green light. Why was that such a game changer?
Because it just ended years of this low-grade fear, this existential threat. The act literally amended federal securities law. It said flat out, a compliant payment stablecoin from a permitted issuer is not a security, and it's not a commodity.
Boom. Just like that. SEC, CFTC. Their jurisdiction over these specific assets just vanished.
Pretty much, yeah. For years, everything was under the shadow of the Howey test as an investment contract. This carve-out gave banks, asset managers, corporate treasurers the green light they'd been waiting for, the legal certainty.
Regulatory clarity is oxygen for institutions, right?
Absolutely. Before July 18th, holding stablecoins was kind of a bet on maybe winning a court case later. After July 18th, holding a compliant stablecoin was just holding a regulated digital dollar overseen by bank regulators. Different world.
Okay, but that clarity came at a price. A huge trade-off. The Great Prohibition. Tell us about that.
This was the big one. The law explicitly bans permitted stablecoin issuers from paying any kind of interest or yield directly to the people holding the stablecoins. 0%.
Why? That seems like it kneecaps the product itself. Who wants a dollar that doesn't earn anything?
But think about who wouldn't want that. The banks. This was reportedly a major lobbying win for the traditional banking sector. They were terrified of disintermediation.
Meaning money leaving bank accounts.
Exactly. Imagine trillions flowing out of bank deposits, earning almost nothing into a totally safe, government-blessed stablecoin paying, say, 4% yield from its treasury reserves. That could break the traditional banking model.
So the yield ban was basically a defensive wall. Protect the old system.
That's the theory. Protect the banks from a mass exodus of capital. So the act deliberately created this very specific thing. Fully reserved, transparent, regulated, but totally non-yielding, a sterile digital dollar.
Stable and legal, but can't compete on yield.
Correct. And that decision, that intentional sterilization, that's the direct cause of the Great Bifurcation. It split the market. You have the U.S. regulated zero-yield payment zone, and then you have this global yield-hungry synthetic market operating outside that U.S. fence.
The starting gun fired. And the runners went in two completely different directions.
Couldn't have said it better. The redistribution was immediate.
Okay, so the act passes. Did it actually work? Did we see that institutional growth they wanted?
Oh, yeah. Big time. The numbers don't lie. The total stablecoin market cap blew past $300 billion for the first time ever in September 2025. That wasn't just random noise. That was serious institutional cash finally feeling comfortable coming in.
And activity. Usage.
Through the roof. On-chain transaction volume, Q3 2025, a record $9.6 trillion. That's up, over 43.8% from just the previous quarter. A massive flood of liquidity and actual use. And this is the crucial part, that flood wasn't evenly spread. The Genius Act acted like this perfect filter. It instantly accelerated the split between the two big dogs, USDC and USDT.
Let's talk winners first. Yeah. USDC. Circle, the issuer. They always played the long game on compliance, right?
They did. Their whole model was built for this moment, and their timing, perfect. Successful IPO in June 2025, just weeks before the act, they were ready.
So what happened to their market cap?
Exploded, up an incredible 72% year-to-date between January and October. And think about this. USDC had this regulatory double whammy advantage. fully compliant with the US Genius Act, and already the go-to regulated choice under Europe's MiCA rules.
So for any institution in the US or Europe needing a regulated digital dollar, USDC was the easy, obvious answer, already blessed by regulators on both sides of the Atlantic.
Made onboarding way simpler. If you're a bank needing collateral or a payment processor needing a settlement asset, USDC was just there. Publicly traded, fully compliant, ready to go.
Okay, now contrast that with the old king, USDT Tether.
Yeah.
Still the biggest globally, but the act caused problems for them in the US, didn't it?
Yeah, major headwinds because of the reserves.
Right, back to that strict rule. Only cash and short-term treasuries. What did Tether hold that didn't fit?
Well, a few things, according to their attestations back then. They had significant commercial paper, which isn't as liquid and has more credit risk. They also held other stuff, corporate loans, Bitcoin, even gold. Diversified, maybe, but definitely not compliant with the Act's narrow definition. Added volatility risk, too.
And they didn't have the same kind of certified audits the Act required.
Not under the new specific standards, no. So they couldn't just apply and become a permitted issuer right away.
So the Act didn't ban Tether, but it basically built a regulatory wall around the U.S. financial system, and Tether, as it was, couldn't get inside. What did that do to their market share?
It definitely eroded it. Their global share dipped from around 67.5% down to 60.4%. And the IMF, in their Q3 report, specifically called this out, said Tether lost over 3% market share in that quarter alone, directly because the Act was acting like a regulatory filter.
Wow. So the new institutional money flowing in, it went straight past Tether and into USDC.
Pretty much. For the regulated U.S. economy, the message was crystal clear. USDC is the chosen one.
And that shift away from USDT in the U.S. wasn't just passive, was it? The exchanges played a big role. You called Coinbase a kingmaker?
Absolutely. The big regulated U.S. exchanges like Coinbase saw the Genius Act not just as rules to follow, but as a strategic weapon. They didn't just comply, they actively enforced the split. It helped solidify their own position and obviously the position of their key partner, Circle. They built this walled garden for institutions.
How can we see that? What's the evidence?
Look at the trading volume. USDT on Coinbase. In Q3 2025, it just collapsed, down to only 3% of their total volume.
3%. What was it before?
It was around 15% the year before.
Whoa. That's not just market forces. That's a deliberate freeze-out, basically signaling to any institution, don't touch USDT here.
Exactly. It's active marginalization. Meanwhile, the opposite effect. The USDC flywheel started spinning like crazy. Coinbase customers drove a huge chunk of USDC's growth balances were up $12 billion just in that quarter. Coinbase pushed USDC everywhere, default on-ramp, trading pairs.
Making it the easy button for compliant capital.
Yeah. The average USDC balance held on Coinbase platforms hit $15 billion in Q3. Their alignment with Circle was total, and it cemented USDC's dominance in the US.
Okay, so this big shift in what stablecoin people were using, that must have had knock-on effects on the underlying blockchains, right? The pipes themselves.
Absolutely. This led directly to what we call the infrastructure bifurcation. That's like a barbell strategy emerged for blockchains.
A barbell, meaning specialization at both ends.
Exactly. Two distinct types of chains rose to prominence, catering to the different needs created by this split stablecoin market.
Okay, so one end of the barbell, the heavy institutional side. You're saying that's Solana. How did the Act boost Solana as the B2B settlement layer?
It comes down to speed and cost at massive scale. Institutions moving big money need high throughput, low fees, and reliability. Solana became the go-to for that kind of large, frequent settlement. Its total value locked, the TVL, hit a new record, $31 billion. And that wasn't retail apes. That was serious institutional confidence.
And how much of that was driven by the compliant stablecoin, USDC?
A lot. USDC on Solana was the single biggest asset, accounting for $8.7 billion. That's like 28% of Solana's entire TVL. And you saw major players validating this. Western Union picking Solana for their new global remittance token. That's a huge vote of confidence for large-scale compliant stablecoin flows.
Okay, so Solana for the big institutional plumbing. What's the other end of the barbell? The faster, maybe smaller transaction side?
That became the retail DEX hub. And the winner there, Coinbase's own Layer 2 network, Base. It really captured that B2C retail activity, leveraging its direct connection to the biggest U.S. exchange.
And the growth there was pretty nuts, right?
Absolutely staggering. In October, Base became the #1 Layer 2 by daily active users, DAU. But here's the kicker. Its DAU actually surpassed Ethereum L1 itself, and even Bitcoin's DAU.
Wait, More daily users than Ethereum or Bitcoin? What was driving that?
Just sheer velocity of retail stablecoin activity. All the high-frequency DX trading, the small payments, the NFT mints, the new token launches. Base offered the super low gas fees and quick finality needed for that everyday user doing tons of swaps, probably using USDC as their main currency.
So Solana handles the big bank transfers. Base handles the millions of small consumer clicks.
That's the infrastructure bifurcation, yeah. Driven entirely by where and how people needed to use these newly regulated stablecoins.
Okay, now we get to the core paradox. The Genius Act deliberately made compliant stablecoins sterile. Zero yield. But institutions, treasurers, they can't just sit on cash that's losing value to inflation. That's the problem of sterile cash.
Right, and this is where the market's creativity really exploded. That the yield ban, it didn't stop capital from chasing returns. It just forced the market to get really smart about separating cash from yield. And this led to what we're calling a dual momentum yield structure. Two main paths emerged.
Okay, path one. This sounds like the wilder side, the synthetic yield market, the non-compliant DeFi route. And the big name here is Ethena's USD. How did that manage to offer yield when the USDC couldn't?
Because it's fundamentally different. The Genius Act banned issuers of collateralized stablecoins from paying interest from their reserves. Ethena's USD isn't really backed by collateral in the same way. It's a synthetic dollar.
Synthetic how? How does it generate yield?
Okay, bear with me. It's a bit complex. It uses a derivative strategy, often called cash and carry, or the basis trade. Essentially, they take the collateral people deposit, say ETH, or maybe even USDC, and they hold that asset spot. At the same time, they short the equivalent value using perpetual futures contracts for that same asset.
So, long spot, short futures. That hedges the price risk of the underlying asset, keeps the dollar value stable.
Exactly. The hedge makes it stable. But the yield comes from the perpetual futures market itself specifically, the funding rate. In most market conditions, people betting on the price going up, longs, have to pay a fee to those betting on it going down, sorts. Ethena captures that funding rate as yield.
Ah, okay. So the yield isn't coming from T-bills held in reserve. It's coming from market structure, from derivatives. So it falls outside the Genius Act's yield ban.
Precisely. It's not classified as a payment stablecoin under the Act. It's more like a structured product, a derivatives play, operates in a different regulatory category.
And what happened when USDC and others went to zero yield? What happened to USDD?
Capital flooded into it. USD quickly jumped to become the #3 stablecoin by market cap, right behind USDC and USDT. Its supply surged something like 70% right after the Act passed. All that yield-seeking money had to go somewhere, and USD offered juicy returns.
Incredible. The act designed to stop yield competition actually funneled billions into the highest yield synthetic alternative.
The irony is thick, right? But okay, many big institutions, they still can't touch that stuff. Too complex, too much counterparty risk, compliance issues, which leads us to path 2.
The compliant yield market, the TradFi tokenization path.
Yeah.
How does this work?
This path accepts the sterile cash rule but uses it smartly. If USDC is your safe, regulated 0% payment rail, you just use it to instantly buy something else that does yield and is also regulated.
So separating the payment function from the yield function. Use USDC to move money, then park it in something else.
Exactly. You use USDC like 247 FedWire to subscribe to, say, tokenized money market funds, MMFs, or tokenized U.S. Treasuries.
Tokenized MMFs and T-bills, is that becoming a big thing?
Huge. Exploding, actually. The total value locked in tokenized treasuries and MMFs reportedly doubled to over $5 billion in just the 3 months after the Genius Act. Where did that money come from? Mostly institutions moving out of the now zero-yield USDC and into these things.
And who's issuing these tokenized funds? Is it DeFi, Digens?
No, this is the TradFi giants stepping in. We're talking BlackRock's BU Ideal Fund. We're talking Franklin Templeton's FOBXX. These are established players tokenizing traditional assets. And crucially, they allow institutions to buy and sell shares instantly using compliant stablecoins like USDC.
Wow. So the act, trying to protect banks, actually forced the world's biggest asset managers to embrace tokenization and use stablecoins as the on-ramp for yield-seeking capital.
It's amazing, right? It professionalized the on-chain yield market by forcing the separation. You want safe payments, use USDC. You want yield, use USDC to instantly buy our tokenized T-bill fund.
The unintended consequence strikes again. Creating a sterile dollar led to 2 massive parallel markets dedicated to finding digital yield outside the banking system. That's, well, unintentionally genius.
You could say that.
Okay, so the market map gets redrawn. Everyone has to react. What about Tether? They got sidelined in the U.S. What was their move?
They adopted this dual-track strategy, Very pragmatic. First, they kept their main product, USDT, for the massive global market outside the U.S. emerging economies, DeFi liquidity pools where U.S. rules don't matter as much, and their existing reserves might even be seen as a plus, diversification.
Right, keep the global engine running. But they needed a way back into the U.S. regulated game.
Exactly. So in September 2025, they announced a brand new, totally separate stablecoin, USA, the A for America, presumably, purpose-built just for the Genius Act, meaning 1.1 backing, only cash and short treasuries, fully compliant.
But how could they get regulatory approval quickly? Did they rebuild their whole compliance setup?
No, this was the clever part, the insider play, as some called it. They basically rented a regulated stack. USI isn't technically issued by Tether, it's issued by Anchorage Digital.
Anchorage, the federally chartered crypto bank.
The very same. Instant regulatory legitimacy. And the reserves. Managed by Cantor Fitzgerald, big Wall Street name, adds that traditional finance credibility.
Okay, that's slick. Outsourcing the regulation. And then they made a big hire, right, for the USAT division?
Yeah, politically very interesting. They hired Bo Hines as CEO for USAT. He was previously executive director at the White House Crypto Council, part of the administration that actually signed the Genius Act.
Wow. So what's the signal there? What's the